Welcome back to the National Hurricane Center. This is Ken Graham out in our operations area. Wanted to give you the latest information on Tropical Storm Fred and also Grace, which is a depression. So let's look at a few things. You can't miss Fred right there on the radar. See that circulation, that center circulation right there. And from now through this afternoon, expect the continuation of this north movement about 10 miles an hour and actually reaching the coast later this afternoon into the early evening. So just look at this moisture. You look at this moisture right around the center. It's not just here, but look at these rain bands in these areas. So Tallahassee over towards Perry, eventually places like southern Georgia, they're going to see all this tropical moisture. And look as far away as Brunswick up to Savannah. Some of these tropical showers are dumping just an incredibly efficient amount of rainfall. So watch out for that. Listen to those warnings just in case they're issued with flooded roadways and also the winds. You put all that rainfall in, and with the latest information we have, still 60 miles an hour in the winds. So 60 mile an hour winds plus flooded roadways and saturated soil, you can knock down some of those trees. So be real careful on that I-10 corridor. Any way that one of these roadways could have some significant amount of water on them. So you got to watch out for that. So that's the latest information that we have. Watch out for these prolonged rain bands. We talk about it all the time. Dennis, how many times we talk about these tornadoes as well? So it's not just the rain, it's that right front quadrant. So Tallahassee, Mariana, eventually getting into Georgia, that right front quadrant can get some of those tornadoes. So that's something we have to definitely watch out for. Listen to those warnings, and the biggest thing is be in a safe place. Here we got to look at this. This is the latest forecast, the brand new update. Those tropical storm force winds extending about 90 miles out from the center. So it's not just that center. Remember, it's in those rain bands. So you have that core, but you also have these rain bands on the outside where you can see some of those high winds. That's 10 a.m. right there, Central Time, and then moving inland this afternoon, early evening, and then traveling inland into Georgia, and even eventually into portions of Tennessee and the Carolinas. And we got to mention that because that drags all that moisture with it. So right here tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, up into portions of Georgia, and then in the evening hours getting into the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, and that could always prove to be dangerous with that tropical rain, and you combine that with terrain. Looking at some of the other information here, here's the storm surge, dangerous storm surge in some of these areas. We look from Indian Pass over the Steinhatchee River, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in some areas. At low tide, well before the storm, pushing water up in there to 3 feet. So even if the tides come off, it's going to hold that water in. As the storm gets closer, you can push a little more in there. So despite thinking that, well, the tides are coming down, well, the storm's going to counter that and try to still push some of that water in there. So listen to those local officials. Those low-lying roads could be impassable and dangerous. So 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in that area. And even the Steinhatchee River over to Yankeetown. Look how far away. Look how far away from the center. You still have that push and that wind of that water, 2 to 4 foot of storm surge in some of those areas as well. So really going to have to look at that and look at some of the dangers associated with it. And that's Fred. And we're going to look at the rainfall last because I really want to spend some time on the rainfall part. So here's Tropical Depression Grace, winds 35 miles an hour. In the yellow here, we still have those tropical storm watches, but notice we have warnings up. Tropical storm warnings up for portions of Cuba. We also have a tropical storm watch up for Jamaica, where you can see some of those winds. Forecasting once we get further out over the open water to become a storm again, and eventually impacting Mexico and back into the Gulf. So we'll see with time some uncertainty with this forecast, but notice that trend has been further south in the modeling, and it continues to really kind of be further south. So if you're in Jamaica, you're watching from Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, just intense rainfall, dangerous amount of rainfall associated with this. Some areas, getting 8-10 inches of rain. There are some places that could get 15 inches of rain in some of these areas. So that could be particularly dangerous. Terrain, mudslides, and even the winds are higher in some of that higher terrain. So something we have to watch. I do want to switch over. We do actually have number 8, Tropical Depression 8. If you're traveling or watching from Bermuda, we have that tropical storm watch up, but very slow movement with time. This is throughout the entire week. Even by the end of the week, we're right there on Friday. So just real slow movement right around the island. So if you're traveling, just something to bear in mind. This will be out there, especially mariners as well. If you're watching and you're a mariner, just dangerous situation, not just with Fred and Grace, but also number 8 over in this area. So let's look at the rain. I really want to spend some time talking about the dangerous amount of rain you can get in these situations. We saw the radar. from Fred, and that's where you can see some areas. This yellow here is 4 to 6 inches of rain. The orange 6 to 10 inches of rain. So some of these areas could get a dangerous amount of rainfall, not just right around the center, but even over by Tallahassee, getting 2 to 4 inches of rain. But look inland. You get towards Atlanta, the North Georgia, into portions of the mountains, Cherokee, North Carolina, just barely to the southeast of Knoxville. There's a lot of terrain up in there, and when you start combining that tropical rainfall and terrain, you can get some flash flooding, some dangerous flash flooding. And the Weather Prediction Center, looking at that, some of those areas, one, focusing on that moderate risk of flash flooding right there, or right where the landfall is, right where that heavy tropical rain is. But look what happens with time. Even portions of, you back up here, you look at western North Carolina, portions of extreme west South Carolina and North Georgia, some of those areas could see some of that flash flooding as well. So, if you're listening, it's just dangerous, especially at night where you can't see where water covers the road. That's something to bear in mind.